Yeah, there's a great sifting happening right now. There's a great sort, whether you are, that's often attributed to moving to different areas, like moving to where you are because it's more conservative than California. But the great sort is happening in all kinds of different areas. Companies, I saw JP Spears, who's a comedian on YouTube just a few days ago, made a whole video about how basically, and I don't know if he's saved, but he's like way closer to Christianity than he was even 2 years ago. And he attributes it to how evil things are. And he just can see, he can't deny there's evil in front of me. Like, I need God if this is the world I'm inhabiting. And it's sort of shocking people into taking a side, whether are we going to be on Christ's side or are we going to be on the side of the devil? And those are the two options. And we do need to, I think, press that going back to what James Lindsay had put on Twitter, he said that he implied that the reason that leftists, the woke, he said, hate Christianity is because it's a feature of Western civilization, right? And so we shouldn't buy into the narrative of it's Christians versus transgender people. We should see it for what it is. It's like an attack on Western civ. But if you think about it, that's also identity. You're also, and it doesn't actually solve the issue. You're not retreating to a neutral place where it's like, well, Western civ transcends identity. What Western civ is also, it might be broad, but it's also an identity to say, I'm a part of Western civ. And what do you mean by that is the other question. So what do you mean you're part of Western civilization? Does that mean you value scientific inquiry and the Enlightenment, or are you more in the Reformed, the Christian side of that? Because those are also two different things. And Western civilization can be broad. You can go back to Greco-Roman myths. You can go back to the Bible, and you're in Western civ tradition. And so the only point I really wanted to make on that is just that don't disbelieve what your eyes are seeing right now. It is the world lined up against Jesus Christ and those who represent him. Jesus said it would be that way. It's not because of Western civ. Ultimately, I'm not saying they don't hate Western civ, but they hate Christ.
They hate
and it's
Western
more the other way.
Civilization because it was built by Christianity.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's more like that's why they hate Western civ.
Exactly. It's the opposite of what James Lindsay is saying. It's not, they don't hate Christianity, they hate Western civilization. No, they hate Christianity, and therefore they're attacking, the things that Christianity, they're deconstructing everything that Christianity has built. Right. And Western civilization is one of those things. I remember thinking about this all the way back in 2018 when I was leaving Acts 29. I'm thinking okay, what's the one common denominator? All right, what are all the things that are hated? And they weren't blatantly saying we hate these things, but I knew I was a white, male pastor in Acts 29, and I'm watching, and I knew, it's obvious. We can say it now. In 2018, it was really hard to say. And I said some of these things, and I, kind of got in trouble and was warmly asked to leave. And then I chose to leave, and those kinds of things. But I remember thinking, if I was a black pastor, I'm white. If I was black, I would have 10 times the opportunity in Acts 29. Guaranteed.
Oh yeah. Probably
objectively.
More. Yeah.
Definitive statement. That's absolutely true. I know I would. I absolutely know I would. And so I was thinking, my whiteness, right, is not appreciated here. And hated might have been a strong term at the time, but it was a subtle form of hate. It was discrimination. And so white, okay, and then male. Right, I started noticing not just in Acts 29, but all across. We see it in the SBC. We see it all over, and that's just evangelical. It's all just as bad, if not worse, in the world. Except the SBC usually can keep par with the degrees of immorality of the world. So I can't say the world's worse necessarily in the SBC.
There's a shadow that follows it, yeah, from a distance.
But the whole, believe all women, the whole hashtag Me Too, hashtag Church Too, hashtag, So then it's okay, so we hate white, we hate male, we hate straight. Cisgendered, whatever that is. We hate children, right? So then, and I just started looking at all these things, and I'm thinking, where can I connect these dots? Where is a common denominator? And the scientific method, being on time, promptness is whiteness, and I started realizing along the way, I was they don't hate whiteness, they hate Christ. They don't hate Western civilization, they hate Christ. They don't hate patriarchy even. They hate Christ. Patriarchy, whiteness, all these things are, and that's not to say that whiteness is synonymous with the Christian faith. That is only to say, there's nothing inherently more Christian about being white. It's not an argument from something being inherent. I'm simply saying that providentially, in God's providence, there has been massive revival and Christendom established for the last 500 years, arguably 1,000 years if we go back to King Alfred, primarily in Western, predominantly white countries. It's and if it doesn't change, I had another tweet the other day where I said, sometime soon, seeing Uganda in the position that they're taking against LGBT, like laughing at it, which is good to mock and to laugh. This is ridiculous. No way. But I posted a clip of Ugandans celebrating, overruling, and I said, very soon, if the West doesn't repent, they'll be running commercials in Uganda that say for just $1 a day, you can support a little white kid in America and give him a Christian education.
Oh no, that's good.
Because it's not inherent to pigment, skin pigment, and ethnicity. It's just in God's providence. For 1,000 years, he's done a lot among white people.
And we can prove this point easily, Joel, even with what I said about what's happening in the Kentucky legislature this morning. These NeoPagan ideas, or this rising NeoPaganism, primarily they're trying to draw from Norse mythology, and it's really the mythology of Europe more broadly. I don't really know all the differences, but there's the Welsh and right. Irish and all these different pagan kind of deities that were the pre-Christian understandings. They were pagans, right? And so that's what they think that they're going back to, and they don't have any problem with that. Those people were white, but they have no problem with appropriating white European culture as long as it's not Christian.
Yeah.
And this is on the transgender side of it. So they just don't say that that's part of whiteness. So when they talk about whiteness, they're talking about something specific, and Christianity seems to be related to it to some extent. And really their goal is to rip down the society that we live in and all the institutions in it that white people who were influenced by Christianity set up.
Right.
And so and we're still in the process of ripping those things down. So as long as the ripping down is happening, I think you're going to see this. Now, when the building up starts happening, which maybe that's already started, but when that really gets going, it's going to look a little different, I think. You're going to start to see more overt implementation of pagan rituals into our society. Our calendar is going to look pagan. It's already starting on that. Mm-hmm. We're going to be celebrating things. We might even be celebrating things like the solstice and so mm-hmm. forth. I mean, I would not be surprised if I've lived to see a day where if things continue as they are, again, I'm hoping they don't, right? Right. And I know you're definitely hoping.
Just for the record, as someone who's PostMill, right? We live in the light of eternity. Christians can afford to be patient. It's entirely possible within my eschatological framework that for the next 550 years, God forbid, but if he sees fit, 500 years, that the West could be absolutely decimated. We could go back to a stone age. We could, lose technology. All these kind of horror things could happen. I just think that, if that happens for 500 years, well, then we're going to have at least another 5,000 years for it to be rebuilt. I just think that it's going to be one step back, 10 step back. But if it's one step back, it'll be 2 forward. If it's 10, it'll be 20, So that's all I hold to as a post-millennial. I have no promise in the Bible for America. I'm praying for America. I want America to be a Christian nation. I know you do too. But I don't have any, America can be wiped out. I just think that the nations are Christ's inheritance, and progressively, not the cataclysmic, suddenly, soon eschatology, but the gradualistic, progressive, victorious, hopeful eschatology that Christ will win the hearts of the nations progressively throughout human history over time. But that could be 40,000 years from now.
You're not a boomercon. That's all. Yeah. That's why you don't think America's part of this, right? That's or doesn't have to be, I should say.
Right.
Yeah. Which is what I see a lot of the guys with that eschatology who are more boomercons. They definitely see it. It's to say, well, anyway, that's it. We're on a tangent. I know what you're saying.